Well, hey, everybody, we've got a crisis at our border. We've got a crisis in Los Angeles, and the way it's piling up to look like this coming Saturday, we're going to have a crisis all over our nation. What's this all about? Well, we're going to be talking to a retired Border Patrol agent. Our guest today was a union leader representing over 2,000 Border Patrol agents in the San Diego sector. He retired from the Border Patrol after years of service and now spends time speaking about our Border Patrol security issues with leaders all over the country. We are joined today by Christopher Harris. Mr. Harris, thank you for joining us.
Pastor Tim, thank you for having me. I'm always appreciative to be on your show.
Yeah, always love having you on. You've got such a great insight into what's going on, especially with all the many years you spent in the Border Patrol services. Like I opened up, we've got a crisis at our border right now, and we've got massive things happening, as people know, in Los Angeles. The way it's gearing up, we're going to have a lot of problems potentially this weekend. What's your take on what's going on?
Well, you said that crisis on the border. Actually, under this administration, and I try to be nonpartisan, Tim, but the border is actually the best it's been in decades. So the crisis is now moving inland to our interior communities, as you see it in LA. We've had a little preview in New York City and Seattle. I think you're going to see this popping off in Denver and other areas. This is a preview. This is where people do not want actual enforcement of the law. And I'm a little unclear about that laws that are duly constituted by this country, some groups of people feel like we shouldn't enforce them at all anymore because we choose not to. So if you have mob rule that decides we don't want to enforce laws, you don't have a country anymore. And we're actually seeing that starting to take place in LA right now.
Right. Well, yeah, starting. I mean, this is now several days, and there's a group out there, nokings.org. I don't recommend people go to that website, but they're basically organizing these types of protests across our nation. There's hundreds of them gearing up to take place this Saturday, even in my hometown of Temecula, California. And even right now, I just want to say, if you're watching this, you live in the Temecula area, don't go out to the duck pond this Saturday. Stay away from what they're doing. Let Chad Bianco, who is an amazing sheriff, let him do his job. He's very good at it. We remember when BLM tried to come into Riverside County, he would not put up with it. And we didn't have all the stuff that was going on in Los Angeles in Riverside County, thanks to Sheriff Chad Bianco, which I would say I hope one day is our governor. But we've got these things going on all over the place. Mr. Harris, you've got so much experience in the border issues as far as the types of people that we're sneaking across. As you said, we've got a secure border now, but we have the crisis that has been created because of the open border policy of the previous administration. What types of people have come into our country, and what are they doing now?
So Tim, I love that you asked that. So we caught a lot of people that were not good people. We opened up the amnesty system to abuse. Now, the amnesty system is a beautiful system. There's nobody in the Border Patrol I know that wants to get rid of it. It was written so, like, basically your government, where you're coming from, was doing genocide against you. This is your last chance to stay alive. But it got turned into something different under the last administration, where almost anybody could claim economic reasons or whatever for asylum. So we let them in. You just step foot in the U.S., you just step 1 foot on the grounds and you say, I have a credible fear. You were processed and then released to the United States. That was bad enough. But what the Border Patrol will tell you, what I know from first-hand experience, is the people that you should be worried about, really worried about, is what we call the gotaways. So in other words, there are people that just said, all right, catch me. I'm not trying to run from you. I'm right here. Come get me. And we sent vans to get them. They paid the smugglers X amount. Well, there's people that paid the smugglers a lot more so they wouldn't be caught. And these are the ones, about 2 million, we are under our metrics, the Border Patrol metrics. And we're pretty good at it. To estimate over the last 4 or 5 years, for 2 million were gotaways. So where did they go? Why were they gotaways? Why did they want to just step over the border and say, hey, here I am, catch me, release me? Because their backgrounds. They didn't want to get vetted, even in the most minuscule bit of fingerprints. So these are what we call gotaways. These are the ones you should be very, very worried about. And so we're going to say there's probably about 2 million gotaways in the United States. Who are these people? Why are they here? What are they going to do? And that should be, if it doesn't worry you, then your head is in the sand, or you're so far to the left that you don't care what damage you can do to our country. But these are bad people. We'd get called out to military bases to deal with these people trying to get on the bases. So these people are either cartel, they're hardcore gangbangers, they're terrorists, they work for a foreign nation state for their intel. We've dealt with Chinese people that were intel. their intelligence services. So they're in the United States, and that's a low figure of 2 million. So what are they doing? What can they do? And what can we do to prevent that? And we're seeing some of these actors behind the scenes in LA that provoke and instigate these types of things that are going on right now. Because I know the people involved are the super bad people. They're just people that get caught up and they're ignorant and they go along with it. They're sheep. But who's instigating it? Who's behind it? What's the background and why? What is the game plan and what's the ultimate goal?
Right. I was talking to a couple of different sheriffs in our nation, and there was a meeting with the director of the FBI. This was in the previous administration after October 7th of 2023, which my audience may remember. That was the attack in Gaza in Israel. Now, the director of the FBI had told the sheriffs, now there's some 3,300 sheriffs nationwide here in America. They told the sheriffs, and like I said, I had multiple sheriffs let me know that this, in fact, was what was said, that the people who trained Hamas to go into Gaza and do what they did in Gaza, which I've seen some of the videos, horrific what they did. Those same people that trained them how to do what they were doing have trained to the tune of hundreds of thousands of people to commit the same type of acts here in America. And now we're seeing a very strategic, organized plan to start doing these protests. Can you corroborate the fact that those type of people have come into our country?
We know for a while that one training was happening in Mexico. We know Hamas and Hezbollah have training camps in Mexico. We've known that for years when I was doing intel, and I didn't do a lot of it. The United States Border Patrol has a great intelligence units, plural, and I did some work with that. We have found out some of these actors and groups, our nation states and others. We know Hezbollah and Hamas have training camps in Mexico. We found out that what you would see in the Middle East, you would see pretty soon, about 2 years later, the cartels would be using the same techniques because they had training groups and they were cross-training. So we knew that, but we also know what's happening in the United States. We know that there's been training going on. Several years ago, you probably won't remember this, but it was probably about 8-9 years ago, there was a power substation in Southern California here, Pastor Tim, that was shot at, and it dropped the power grid for like a day or so. It was 4 shots, and the press went with the story that was given to them, that it was some drunken redneck yahoo. Well, we knew different, that there's 4 strategically placed shots that dropped the grid at the substation. And we believe that it was somebody was sending a message, a group to the United States government, that we can do this. It was one person, 4 strategic shots, dropped power to Southern California for like a day, that easily. We know they're here. We know they're using drones. This is something we've dealt with in the Border Patrol for a while, and other law enforcement does, that they're here. They've trained here. There's madrasas and other groups that train here in the United States in rural areas. I think I said you something earlier. We're in San Diego. They're going to do training this weekend for a local militia group that's going to train, bring your umbrellas and canes, pretend they're rifles. So there's groups that are training outwardly, but there's groups that have trained inwardly where we don't see them, but we know about it. And so I think the thing is that a lot of people don't want to hear that. They don't want to know that we've let all these people in and that there's repercussions to that, because then they would have to then face the fact that you allowed this to happen, or your prior administration you supported allowed this to happen. And there are going to be repercussions. Tom Homan has said, whether you like him or not, I know Tom, he's speaking the truth, that he thinks that something bad is going to happen, like a 9/11 in the next few years. I fully believe in that. I am not a doom and gloom guy, but I fully believe that we have so many bad actors in this country that if they're called up to do something, bad things will really happen in the next few years.
Yeah, well, and this is why it's important to see what is taking place right now with this current administration deploying the National Guard, even deploying 400 or 700 Marines from 29 Palms. That is his duty to protect our nation, and he's doing that. But with hundreds of thousands of people trained to wreak havoc on a nation and ready to be called into action at any moment. And the strategic plan that we're seeing for chaos all over our nation this coming Saturday, what would you say as somebody who's been experiencing this? What would you tell my audience? What should they be doing to prepare? I don't want to freak people out, but what should they be doing to prepare? My message is stay home, don't go out, don't be a part of what's going on. But what do you say?
I want to give one background thing. So I was called out to Naval Air Station North Island, one of our military bases, as Border Patrol. And I got there because the armed security at the gate, I think they were DOD police, not MPs, had stopped the vehicle. And it was two Chinese women, young girls, 20-somethings in the front seat, the passenger seat, and they were giggling, and two in the back seats giggling. And there was a woman in the middle, about 40, 50 years old, stone cold watching anything. I don't want to get into operational security, but NCIS came out too. So we're doing our thing, and we both looked at each other, the NCIS agent and myself, and said, she's Chinese intel. They were trying to figure out how to get onto our bases and what's the best way to do that. So it's not just locally, it's more in depth than that. So to your question of what to do, your thing to stay away from those areas is probably the best. And sometimes you can't. I mean, that's the problem, is that you have a life to live. But if you could, I just told my wife this, she's from Mexico, and her family's just down here, 12 of them. And they serve, and two of them serve in the U.S. military. They're not happy with this. But to again, back to what you're saying, is stay away from it if you can. The fact is, though, votes matter. Who you vote for, from dog catcher on up, matters, believe it or not.
Right.
And that's more of a macro, looking forward and bigger picture. But for the micro, yes, stay away from the areas where they're riding, because they don't care. I mean, I was watching a video of a woman who was Latina, and she stopped her vehicle with her kids in the car to yell at these people to let her through, and they started jumping on her car with her two little kids in the back. They didn't care she was Latina. They didn't care. So at a certain point, some of these people don't care. It's anarchy. It's violence. It's really a hatred for the United States. I mean, it wasn't just Mexican flags we saw. We saw flags from around the world. We saw Palestinian flags. We heard people saying death to the United States. That's not, hey, I'm Latina too, leave me alone. That goes out the window. These are people that are here that want to do damage to the United States. And let me bring this up, Pastor Tim. When I was working with the Border Patrol, when the first caravan back in 2016 or so came up from Venezuela, the first big caravan, our intel figured out who was kind of behind it, who was giving the money, who was giving the technical advisories, who was helping them out. George Soros, believe it or not, everybody throws his name around, but yeah, money was coming from George Soros and the Venezuelan government. So when you have Venezuelan intelligence involved, that means Cuban intelligence, that means Russian intelligence. So understand there's also nation states out there that want to do us harm. They're behind some of these things. Anything they can do, be it fentanyl or any of this, that tears apart the fabric of our country, that damages Western, our democratic values, our Christian Judaic values, anything they can do that damages that, they're going to do. So don't think they're not behind this also, or part of it. So back again, stay out of it if you can, because these are bad people and they want to do bad things. And that you're just passing through as an innocent bystander, that's not going to protect you. If you can, stay home, stay away from it.
Right. Yeah, certainly don't provoke it. So what the actions that are being taken right now by the current administration, and the actions taken by the governor in California, the mayor in Los Angeles, what's your take on the actions? Do you think that the current administration is doing what's right, or you think there's more they could be doing or should be doing?
So Newsom's out there saying, and I don't like to be partisan, Pastor Tim, but I'm going to have to.
Yeah, sure.
Newsom's doing a horrible job. So is Bass. Trump is not my favorite guy, but he's doing the right thing. And people are like, oh, my God, he's calling it the Marines. Newsom saying that. It's been done before. There's precedent. It goes back in time where the Marines have been used. They were used in the riots in 1992, the L.A. riots with Rodney King. The Marines were called out. So it's not something like Trump just came out of and said, hey, I'm doing something that's never been done before. People want security, and they deserve security and safety. So whatever that takes, as far as it doesn't go too far, I'm not advocating we do something like the Schustaffel, but that's fine. That's okay. He's doing what's necessary. The LAPD, and it's not the rank and file, but they were told to stand down for 2 hours when they were called for help by federal law enforcement. That's not appropriate. That's actually reprehensible. So Trump is doing what he should do. If there's communities that are burning, if there's rioting going on, if you can't get to work, if you can't pick up your kid and bring him to the hospital, that's a problem. Society needs to deal with that, and that's what he's doing. If the mayor won't do it and the governor won't do it for whatever political purposes, while your city is partially burning, then somebody, an adult in the room, has to step in and say, we're going to do this. We're going to provide some safety and security. We're going to bring back some stability and order. There's nothing wrong with that. And the National Guard is not going out there arresting people. They're just providing security. Understand that. They're not going out and going, hey, we're doing raids ourselves. They're just providing security and saying, you can't loot this building. You can't take over this intersection. You can't attack federal law enforcement. That's what they're doing. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. So I actually believe in this case, Trump is right. And so far, I believe there's a little over 300, because we have somebody in our family that's in the Guard, a little over 300 Guardsmen, but there's about 500 Marines and up to 700 are going to be deployed. I have no problem with that. Again, it's been done before. If Newsom and Bass don't want to do that because it's a political thing, shame on them. If it's my community that my stores are being looted and burned, like nothing says equality or, hey, we're against racism by looting a Foot Locker, right? I mean, that's just insane.
Right.
So he's done nothing wrong with this. And again, I don't mind if he sends more troops, again, just to send security into a neighborhood. Hey, we're standing here. You're not going to loot this store. You're not going to burn these buildings. You're not going to stop this intersection. People have a right to go to their jobs. And I'll bring this up. I worked with activist groups when I was at the union. I worked with a lot of activist groups. And they were going to stage a big protest down here in San Diego several years ago. And I was talking to some of the heads of them. I said, do you really think this is the best way? And this is not riots. This is just protests. But they wanted to shut down part of downtown San Diego. I said, do you think this is the best way to get your message across? Oh, yeah, it gets us into the news. And I'm like, but all these people you're inconveniencing where they have to go to work or come home from work, or their kid has an interview to go to college that they can't get to, or you want to bring your mother to the hospital, or whatever, and they can't. You think that's a positive message that they're going to take about you. And they said, well, we never thought of it that way. I just wonder about people that are protesting saying, what's your message? The messaging you're doing, I'm going to say that you actually did Trump a favor. You could hate Trump all you want. God bless. But you got people with Mexican flags or burning vehicles and saying, he's saying it's an insurrection. He's saying it's invasion. You're saying it's not. I would suggest the photos give credence to what he's saying. And
right.
So if you want to do that, God bless, knock yourself out. But I think the general population in the U.S., the quiet ones that won't talk about it, you and I will talk about it, but that won't talk about it, but they vote. This might have an impact on their thinking as we go along to the midterms, which Democrats think they're going to flip. Well, I think a lot of people are going to think about this and go, yeah, I think Trump's right, and this is not right, where people are here from other countries burning stuff, rioting, right, attacking our law enforcement, why they're waving the flags of foreign nation states. That
right.
might backfire.
Yeah. And I'm listening to the mayor of Los Angeles saying that, she believes that her community is on her side of this. And what I'm seeing a lot of is that's just not true. I see a lot of the Hispanic community are very supportive of the law enforcement, very supportive of what this current administration is doing. I see Hispanic people out there washing the eyes of the deputies that are getting stuff in their eyes and taking care of them. So, and I can tell by how you're looking at me, you see the same thing.
So just the United States Border Patrol is a majority-minority agency. I had CNN down many years ago on the border as a union guy for a border tour. And afterwards, the reporter said, Chris, everybody I talked to had Hispanic surnames. Did you set that up? I'm like, yeah, I have that much authority in the Border Patrol to move assignments around. I said, no, we're 60-some% minority agency. My family, I married into, so they say that most of us are Hispanic in the Border Patrol, or you marry into a Hispanic family, which I did. Just this weekend, we had 12 people here, all Mexicans in my house. And they hate what they're seeing. They can't stand that they're burning the American flag. Right. Their mother and their fathers are from Mexico. They are, first generation. My wife was born in Mexico. They can't stand it. They can't stand it. And they are very pro law enforcement. They're pro trying to provide safety and security. They came and did, my wife did. She went, I watched her take the oath with the American flag to become a U.S. citizen. She did it the right way. They can't stand people that are doing it the other way. She has 2 tias up in the LA area. They're both Democrats. They don't like Trump, but they can't stand what they're seeing. So yes, Pastor Tim, there are a lot of Hispanics that you won't hear on CNN or MSNBC or whatever, a lot of the legacy media. You won't hear that because nobody wants to hear that view. But they're the ones that voted for Trump. They're the ones that quietly voted for Trump. And so if you want to keep going down this route of we want insurrections, we want rioting, we want no enforcement of the laws we don't like, I think you're going to keep losing at the polls because the Hispanic community as a whole, and again, I'm part of it now. They're in my house. They live here. I love it.
Yeah.
It's overwhelming 14 people at my house, but it's a Mexican family thing. The food is great, by the way.
Yeah.
This is what they really do support.
Right.
And they serve their country honorably and well. One right now serving the California National Guard full time. One got out of the U.S. military. They support the U.S. They support law enforcement. They are in law enforcement. They are in the Border Patrol. And so, to your point, they're the ones that are walking away from the Democratic Party saying, you don't represent me. And my wife's still a registered Democrat, but she's walked away from voting for them just because there was a D after their name. And so if you want to go down this route of anarchy and burning stuff and looting and waving a flag from a foreign nation state as you're burning and looting, you're losing your own community.
Right. Absolutely. Well, we've got, I'm sure as we see over these next several days and weeks, we're
a little worried
more of this stuff. I'd love to have you back on as things progress and just get your take on it, if you would.
Sure. Always a pleasure. You and I have done this before up at your church and all that. So I'm always available.
Awesome. Well, Christopher Harris, former Border Patrol and
retired.
What's that?
Retired. A little difference, former and retired.
Right.
Now.
Retired union leader representing 2,000 Border Patrol agents in the San Diego sector. Christopher Harris, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Pastor Tim, thank you for having me on.
Thank you. And I just want to remind all of you that are tuning in right now, like this video, share it out with your friends, your family, your neighbors. Head over to ourwatch.com, subscribe, become one of our watchmen. We'd really appreciate that. Until next time, we'll see you right here on Our Watch with Tim Thompson.